We're often blessed with some investors here on the podcast that have a different range of skills. But this one in particular, I think, is someone who's quite relatable, pretty much learned property himself from scratch. And I think you're up to 82 deals now.
That's the one.
Last
Should be
time I
84
checked.
by the end of next week.
So we got a property investor here, Michael Wilson. Also, you might know him as Wils Diggity. What we like to do is always start with your backstory, because what we find the most valuable content for our clients is when people can relate. So, mate, how did you get into real estate? What was that moment when it clicked and you thought, this is how I'm going to build wealth, is through property?
How did I get into real estate was by being a bit of a bad boy.
I've heard rumours in the story, yeah.
Heard rumours, well, they're probably true. You know, it wasn't like there was anybody getting hurt, but getting up to things that most people would consider not to be above board as such. But anyway, I ended up getting into a bit of trouble with the boys in blue.
Yeah.
You know, in life where you become a product of your environment. So the
Yes.
people who you know that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
Now that is true, but the caveat to that is what you know often determines who you know. Now, I didn't know anybody that was doing really well in life, but I was in this position where I was being asked these questions by my mum and dad at the time, saying, who do you know who's doing well in life? Because you're clearly not. And what are they doing?
And how old are you? This?
I was basically 20 years old, so
Okay,
fresh
cool.
20-year-old.
Yeah, super young.
And I was like, I don't know anybody who's doing well in life. And so they said, well, surely you know somebody. And I was like, I know my brother's friend, Tim. He's doing pretty good. And I'm like, what does Tim do? And I was like, I don't know what Tim does, but he owns 3 houses. So they were like, sweet. So you know somebody who's doing well and they own 3 houses. And maybe you could own some property or own some houses too. So I was like, yeah, maybe I could, because you don't believe that anything is possible for you until you've seen somebody else do it. Generally speaking, like if you can see somebody else who's come from nothing and done it and got to somewhere, and you can relate that back to yourself, then you know that it could be possible for you, right? It's not like he didn't have rich parents. He didn't, come from money. He moved up from New Plymouth up to Hamilton, and he worked hard, and he got into a position where he owned 3 houses quite young. He's about 2 years older than me. So, you know, that realization of being able to see somebody else who had done well, who wasn't that much further ahead than you in life, and then being able to talk to them and see how they did it, opens you up to the realization that it can be possible for yourself. And that's what we find with a lot of people we work with too, is they just sometimes need to be shown how it's done, instead of in their mind thinking, oh, it's easy for them because they have X, Y, Z, you know, they've got the right connections or some trust fund or something that's not even true.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I got started. So it was the realization that it could be possible for me through somebody else who'd done it that I knew. And then it was getting steered in the right direction to start working towards that goal, which was doing something that I was perhaps not passionate about, but I knew a little bit about and was quite keen on, which was getting into the building industry. And that came off the back of my parents saying, well, what sort of job are you going to get? Because you're going to need to save up a deposit and learn some skills. And I was like, well, if I want to learn how to buy houses and renovate them and add value, then building apprenticeship would be a good thing to do. So that's pretty much what I did. I started looking for a building apprenticeship, and it was something that I'd had some previous experience with. I used to build furniture as a teenager.
Oh, cool.
And so building seemed like a logical thing to do.
Yeah.
So I started looking for an apprenticeship and landed one in Te Awamutu, which I wasn't from there originally, but ended up there, and started saving up the conventional way because I didn't know anything else except for saving up the conventional way every single week, selling all my shit, all my cool stuff, and then getting that first deposit and scaling from there. But I was learning in the process between there and then, yeah.
Your origin story is very relatable to all first-time buyers, right? Understanding what needs to be done to get there, accepting things like it's a big mountain to climb, and I don't have these advantages like some other people do, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? Because I think that's a really important one for property, is that people often try and make excuses for themselves and say, so-and-so's got it easier, right?
Yeah, even though they probably don't 99% of the time. In your mind, you've made up a story.
Yeah.
People make up these excuses, and you know what an excuse is for somebody? It is a shield to hide your own inadequacies.
True.
So you're using an excuse so that way you don't feel bad about your shortcomings and shortfalls.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah, started the conventional way, and it took me, I think we spent about 18 months saving up for that first property, and it wasn't all savings. I think I saved about 15. Jade maybe saved about 3 or 4 grand.
Yeah.
And
don't hold her against it.
No. And we just sold a bunch of stuff. So we sold, couches and random things that I had, random possessions, sold my flash drum kit, used to play drums previous to that.
Yeah.
That was like $4,000. So like that stacked up to getting us towards that 50K deposit.
Yeah.
It was 20% deposit at the time. Found a property for 250 or negotiated it. Thought I was negotiating at the time, and purchased something for 250 worth around about 300K at the time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that became the family home, or did that become an investment?
It was always going to be an investment.
Yeah.
Right
Cool.
from the start.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys had a place to stay. You're going to buy it and rent it out.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. Yep.
And how did this start to snowball, and sort of what were the moments where you realized that it was actually a scalable thing? Like, did you make any money on this, on equity in this one, or talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think I realized that it worked. The first one was fine because you save the deposit, conventional way, how most people do it. There's so many other ways once you learn a little thing or two. But then by the time we bought the second property, because it basically validated what I was trying to do, which was buy into value, add value, revalue, rinse and repeat, go back, get finance, buy the next one with the same strategy. And we did that.
And this is what old mate Tim did, right?
Yep, exactly the same thing. Yeah. We did slightly different strategies, but pretty much the same thing. And we bought the second property bang on 6 months after the first one. So bought the second one, and then that was like, okay, sweet, this works. I've now used 100% finance to buy property number 2. And then we did the exact same thing, put new carpet in, bit of paintwork, did the grounds on property number 2, went back to the bank, got a pre-approval in place, bought property number 3. So within 12 months, 1, 2, 3, using that exact same strategy. Now, what I didn't realize and didn't have any understanding around is the how the servicing side works, and that I was actually becoming stuck through buying these properties that were cash flow positive, but I was becoming stuck through servicing. And that took me quite a long time to figure out. And it's really interesting now that you talk to a lot of people, even a lot of people that you think would know, they don't actually know how to calculate what servicing needs to be to allow you to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's where I got stuck. And then I sort of sat around for a year and a half, 2 years, did my building apprenticeship, and I moved into building at that stage because, as I said before, you become a product of your environment and you do what the people around you are doing and what you can see as possible. So, yeah.
Brilliant. I think that's such an interesting point you just mentioned around the serviceability, because I get to that point and have that conversation so much with investors where maybe they're trying to get to the third one and then they say, what do you mean? The property, the rent's covering all the expenses. How am I stuck on servicing?
Yep.
And it's a calculation that's actually a bit complex depending on which lender you're at and depending on actually your situation, because there are some things that can count against you, bigger expenses, or maybe it's a expensive property to maintain, rates, insurance.
Yep. Absolutely.
So it's something that you got to keep in mind. But the cool thing about your story so far is that you've learned all the hard lessons off you the hard way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But to start with, I got a bit of a mentor a few years into property. Yeah. Which was really cool. I learned a lot. His background was also in construction and development.
Very cool.
So I learned a bit about that. But in saying that, when he was in his 20s, he owned 24 rental properties.
Oh my God.
But he hated rentals now, and he's an elderly man now.
And so what turned him off? Was there market crash or something?
Yep, 1987 market crash.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Finance back then was a completely different ball game.
Yeah,
so he said back then he would walk in, you'd shake the bank manager's hand, you'd talk about what you want to do. That's your finance.
Things are changing for the better. So let's fast track. I mean, we went from deal 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Obviously, some of them you kept, some of them you sold, but we ended all the way up to 82.
Yeah.
So let's reflect, because I've found in my career the best way to learn is asking people not what they did right, because it's very clear you've had lots of successes, but what went wrong.
Oh, we definitely had a few not go to plan as such.
I feel like A, it makes way better content.
Yeah.
And B, that's how you really learn what works as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So have you got any snippets for us of things?
We've had a couple, recently that haven't, I wouldn't say they've been disasters or anything, but they just haven't gone to plan as such. Sometimes you don't even realize that things are going wrong because you haven't known enough about the property deal you're doing to realize what you could have been doing better sometimes. And that's what I started to learn when I started working with somebody else, is that I started to learn how much money I was leaving on the table with the properties that I'd already been involved in. Yeah. Just because you didn't, you've got an ignorance tax, which is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be. It's exactly the same as the difference between what you know and what you haven't yet learned and implemented. So that gap of what you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you bridge that knowledge gap and then you implement, you learn so many more ways that you can be making money from specific properties that you wouldn't have learned before. So those first properties, one was 2 titles. I don't know why I sold it as 1. It could have been sold as 2 and made an extra $100,000. Second one was subdivided into 3 lots. I didn't realize how you could subdivide or that you could even subdivide it, but there was a few $100,000 left on the table there. But we sold those so I could start building specs. So it was all good. But some of the things that have gone wrong recently, we just bought a place down in Gore. This was actually just before Christmas. Bought it off somebody in the community, paid him a fee for the privilege to take over the deal. Good deal, nice little healthy profit in it, real easy. And then between purchasing it and selling it, it was 2 sections in a house and 1 sale and purchase agreement. Sold 1 section, sold the house after we made it Healthy Homes compliant, and then Southland District Council or Gore District Council changed the rules, so they're raising the flood levels 1.5 meters. So now the section, we're getting a survey to look at this at the moment to determine how high do we have to build on the section now. And all of a sudden, as soon as everybody caught wind of that, nobody's interested in the section anymore because it's in a floodplain.
Yeah.
So council could change the rules, and we've actually had that happen a few times.
So you got a rug pulled by the council.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they've done it before, not that council, but other councils. We had a similar one with the property we just sold this week, went unconditional. It was a development block. Very similar thing. We purchased it in 21, peak of the market, which it wasn't the end of the world. It had a good margin, but what happened is just after we purchased it, we started doing our resource consent to go into council to subdivide into 8 lots. And then the moment, when it was in council, the Waikato Regional Council changed the definition of the overland flow path through that section as being a stream. It's not a stream. It's no water that runs through there except for the council runoff off the road.
Oh my God.
But now that the definition is a stream, what that means is we can't touch it. So instead of doing a culvert, just a concrete pipe, building over it, compacted fill, driveway or right-of-way, instead of that, we have to do a bridge. So the bridge is $150,000 plus consultants and engineers.
It just completely kills the feasibility.
Kills it. So these back 2 sections are now, there's no profit in them. There's no point doing the bridge. So you basically wipe the 2 back lots off your development, and now it still had profit in it, but what we did is we did a variation consent, did the front 2 lots. There was money in those, and we just decided market's turning by this stage, so we'll park the back lot. Doesn't matter, we'd put cash in the deal. We can just sit there and hold it for forever, essentially. But and then as the market's turned and now we're doing other stuff, we've decided it's better just to clear that off, leave some money in for the next guy. We disclose, you're better to do 4 lots, not 6, do a variation. And so we've sold that, but that was a bit of a hiccup from the rule changes.
And the worst thing about that, it's not even a mistake. It's just an unforeseen sort of slap in the face. But it sounds like the key takeaways are fully understand the scope, like you said with those 2 examples.
One of the awesome things that I learned from a guy who taught me quite a lot around development is that when I first started looking, like the gold standard seems to be 20%, right? You're going for 20% on a development seems to be a pretty common thing with developers.
Yeah.
And he would always be like, no, 20% is not enough because you need to have a margin for things to go wrong. You need to have a margin for the market to turn. You need to have a margin for interest rates to go up. You need to have a margin for them to sit on the market for longer.
Insurance.
Yeah, everything. So basically you need to build in a buffer because you might anticipate making 30%, but in development and construction, generally one of those things happens. And in this case, pretty much everything happened. The rules were changed, the market turned, the interest rates went up, our holding costs were longer. So 30% is what we basically work on for development for Greenfield. Yeah. And that held true. We still made a profit on it, which is cool. Not as healthy as we thought it would be originally, but yeah.
You're grateful to be able to make money when stuff hits the fan, eh?
Absolutely, yep. But no, we've had a few others. We've had a flip about a year ago, purchased it. Market was still sort of falling, but it was a great buy. And what we found is we started digging out, there's no car parking, rear section, so we had to dig out a car park. And as we started digging, turns out there's this massive concrete and iron pit under the ground. And this all had to go to a special dump. So that was like an extra $20,000, $25,000 in cost just to clear that out. And, when you were doing a flip in your budget.
So someone had just dumped the old concrete, buried it.
Whoever built the house in 1910.
Did that, yeah.
All the rubbish from the house went in a hole just in front of the house.
And they filled it up.
Yeah. So, when you're doing a flip and your budget's $150K thereabouts and you end up spending $210 because a few things go wrong, your profit margin, that might be $60,000, that's gone.
Yeah, 100%.
And also the market was diving a bit. Now, we had a backup strategy there, which is what we ended up doing. We refinanced the project, pulled most of our cash out, kept it as a rental and carried on.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world, but it did go wrong and it is a pain in the ass. We would have rather sold it.
Yeah,
Got all
that's
our money
brilliant
back
because
and-
you gave
yeah.
yourself options.
Yeah.
So that's really good. So over these 82 deals, a lot's taken place. You know what I mean? Not just your learning and your development and your skills,
Mm.
but also the environment's changed.
Yep.
So let's take it from day one. You saved your first 50K, bought your first place to now.
Mm.
What would you say reflecting are the biggest changes in the property market? Like, how has the environment changed?
Well, I've been in property for about 11 and a half, 12 years. If we fast forward to COVID, obviously we had a crazy boom, 30% growth in a year, that sort of thing. And then coming back out of that into a big slide.
What a hangover.
And the strategy of what you're doing in property has to change during that period, or unless you're locked into big developments and you got no other option. What we did is we just kept pivoting to what was working at the time. I mean, even when Labor introduced the removal of interest deductibility, we were in a unique position where we were building houses and we were doing some subdivisions at that point. So we decided, okay, we're not going to buy
we can keep
any
these.
existing houses. We'll build some new ones for ourselves at cost, which was fine and worked well at the time. You wouldn't do that right now with the current climate, especially after COVID. And there are a lot of flippers that were doing exceptionally well, and they kind of got, as the tide went out, they got caught swimming naked. You sort of get that effect where you think you're really, really good at something, but the reality is you're just in a crazy good market that's hiding all your mistakes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think where we are now, we've kind of gone full circle. I'm not looking to do any more specs or developments currently, but we are looking to buy some more buy and hold rentals.
Brilliant.
I think that's where the market's at right now. And
I think it's
where
an incredible time for that. In some areas, there is this layer of optimism, but then also there's incredible opportunity for the yield game, which, something like a hot market completely wipes out the door. You think about these properties that were supposedly cash flow properties, like you're really struggling to get a 7% gross yield when the markets are doing really well.
Yep.
But now, I mean, I'm sure, you guys are probably seeing, a more regional, at least 8% yield, more than that
regional,
in some certain deals.
Yeah.
And then you got your blue chip cash flow, which we refer to sort of like 50,000 plus population.
Yep. And we're seeing a lot of 8% there as well.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? So it's a good time to sort of get in and establish that. But I think this is a really good time for me to share my reflection on sort of the value of people like yourself, because I'm in the finance game and every day I'm helping people with their finance, their interest rates. And even from my position where I'm seeing these deals that people are doing, it's actually, you're still quite removed from the actual intricacies of a property deal. Be it if you're doing a renovation, what's the actual process, what are the specs, all these sorts of things. And then actually finding a deal, those sorts of things as well. So it's been great for myself to lean on professionals like yourself and Tama to give us some insight, So that 82 deals, 84, soon to be 84, there's all that knowledge that people can lean on to have you as a property coach. But I suppose a lot of people will reach out and they say, look, I can see my mate made 100K doing a property flip. I want to teach. I want you to teach me how to do that. But that's not for everyone, right?
Correct. Yeah. We find that a lot of the time. In fact, I would say probably 70, 80% of the time is what somebody thinks they should be doing is typically not what they need to be doing to get to wherever it is they're trying to get to. And a lot of people see, it's glamorous. If you're on social media, for example, you see flippers saying $100,000 profit, whatever it is, which does happen. It does happen. But it's not typical in the current climate unless you're generally doing a larger flip with more capital and more time invested, which isn't for everybody. And a lot of people aren't actually in that position to go and do it.
And that generally means more risk. And I feel like for a flip, most people come into you, if they don't really have property knowledge, would have limited means, right? And you can pretty much risk the whole bag on a flip, right? You can risk the house on a flip that if it goes wrong, is going to put you back a couple of years. So the buy and hold, and the thing I love about the buy and hold is that you can do all the research to make sure you're so close to assured success, right? You buy a really good property, done the building inspection, really good fundamentals, cash flow positive, for example, and then you buy it. But let's say you missed something, right? You made a mistake and you got to spend 20, 30 grand on the property. Makes it a slightly worse deal. But long-term hold just fixes all that, right? Because inflation cures all in real estate, right?
Inflation is the cure for people who pay too much for property.
Exactly, man. So that's the beautiful thing about it, is that you can just be really confident in getting your numbers close to 100% as possible and let time do the heavy lifting.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you learn how to do it properly, it allows you to scale and grow into a portfolio so much faster that then you can have a portfolio where the capital is compounding together across multiple assets. So time really does start to do the heavy lifting.
100%.
And that's been my experience and experience of people that I've seen who've done it really well too. Like even guys that I know have done a lot of short-term deals versus people who haven't done so many property deals, but they've held on to most of their properties. Like the difference in their position in the future can sometimes be massive.
Yeah.
Even though one guy, might get an ego stroke because he's making 300 grand a year, flipping some properties or specs or whatever it is. And then you've got the other guy quietly, not sexy. He's just bought 4 or 5 houses and he's
so boring.
He's still making his 200 to 300 grand a year, but he's not paying any tax and he's not actually taking the risk and stress and working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's true when you've got a rising market. Right now, not so true, but it's a great time to get into that position where you have 5 or 6 assets. So when we do start to head back into 8, 9, 10 o'clock, you start to see the results of that.
Yeah. Now talk about the property clock, because you've referenced it a couple of times, and this is an awesome little nugget for people. So
the property clock.
Yeah, man, explain, because I mean, it's such a good way to, because everybody at this point can know for sure, property cycles are stretched out. Sometimes they're really short, sometimes they're longer, but it's literally works like clockwork, right?
Yep.
You have your, just like we're going through now, your
things
downturn,
go in cycles.
And then you have a level period, and then you have an economic boom in the property market. So talk about the clock and sort of for the folks at home.
The clock, look, we're in Auckland right now, so I believe Auckland is still very much around the 6, maybe 6:30.
Yeah.
Depends who you are and which suburb you're in at the moment.
Yeah.
But
the roosters are going off.
Yeah, if you're down south, you're at a different stage of the market currently, but not super far apart. And look, the property clock, we've got recovery, and we've got the boom at the top, we've got the slump, and we've got the recession.
So midday's the boom.
Yeah, midday's the boom. Yeah, 12 o'clock is the boom.
Yeah.
And 12 o'clock is when the developers and the flippers and the spec builders seem like they're creaming it. It's when the accountants see the accounts of developers and they go, I'm going to become a developer, and then they fail and go into the slump and go bankrupt.
They missed it. Yeah.
So, I've seen that before. The slump is when the short-term traders, they struggle a bit. They've got to accept that they're probably only going to make smaller margins.
Yeah.
They're going to be real tight. The recession, which arguably we're still in, it's been a long, long property recession as such.
Yeah.
Great time for acquiring assets if you're in the position to, if you're able to, and you still have the extra serviceability from your own income or your existing assets. And then heading into the recovery is, things start to move again. There's more economic activity, more money in circulation, or maybe stimulation that gets it going, whatever it is. That's the catalyst. But yeah, we head through the recovery into the boom, slump, and recession. And like what your strategy might change during each part of that cycle. Like that's essentially what we've done. Like we started off fumbling a little. I got into property because I wanted to buy and holds.
Yeah.
Got into the environment, started building specs. That was actually a reasonably good time to start doing it. If I had hindsight, I probably wouldn't have done some of the projects that I had done. And then like I started getting back into buy and holds because I got to 2019, just before COVID. And I realized that I'd built about 20 spec homes by now. So bought the sections, built the house, sold them. Like every single one of those made a profit, right?
Yeah.
And some of them were really good. Some of them were like 30, 40 grand. And then you look at it and and I'm not funding all these myself. We've got business partners because you can't scale when you're fresh starting unless you're, leverage other people's money, time, experience, knowledge. So I'm doing this with other people, and then I look back at it, I'm like, okay, well, what's my net worth position now? I've built all these houses, I've worked, whatever it is, 70, 80-hour weeks. And then I look back and I go, you know what? My first 3 houses, what are they worth now? And then I look at my current net worth with one property at this stage, only one property again then, except for the short-term deals, the specs, which was my owner-occupied.
Just a family home.
Just a family home. And I was like, you know what? I've got the exact same net worth I would have had if I'd done that for the last 4 years.
Isn't that crazy? And I feel like it's so many people would feel exact same way.
Yeah.
But then the thing is, you've got the same net worth, but then there's so many moves you couldn't have made unless you sold.
Oh, yeah, and so many lessons too. And things I've learned along the way. But then that was the point, mid to late 2019, where I was like, I need to redirect some of this capital into long-term holds, and I've got to do both. You know? The guy I work with calls it your bread and butter money and your cream. And the bread and butter money is what you do for your day job.
Yeah.
And for me, I was still doing property stuff for my day job, building houses, generally, mostly building houses. And then the cream was the wealth that you generate from the holds or your profit that you reinvest into your long-term assets. So then I needed to do buy and holds again. So we only bought a few and then the market started to turn. I was still doing developments and things, but ever since then we've still been acquiring long-term holds and doing short-term deals. It's just the short-term deals have changed in what they are.
And the dynamic.
Yeah,
That's
dynamic
so
of
good,
them.
man. And it's so good to hear, especially just having that presence of mind and reviewing it. Just look at the property clock, right? Like it's going to keep ticking, but the only way to actually survive all seasons is through buy and hold, right? Good buying long-term decent assets.
That's the thing with property is that like a lot of people like to hate on people who say own a bunch of property or they're making money in property, but the reality is like property is a long game and it takes a lot of grit and determination and perseverance to actually get to a point where it starts to work. Even when they're saving for their first house because they're like, this is taking too long, especially in today because we get it at the click of our fingers. You get on your phone, you order Uber, everything happens in an instant. Whereas getting into property is a long game.
It's a grind. Yeah.
And like a lot of people I initially in my first conversations think that properties can be a get rich quick scheme. There's obviously anomalies, but 99.999% of the time it's not. It's a long game.
Yeah,
property.
Massively long game. And the big thing I think people struggle to deal with is that they get this idea that there's wealthy people in real estate and they tie wealth to income. But majority of properties, you're not making any money, right? Long-term buy and hold, everything's going back into the house, even if you're cash flow positive. You know, you're one hop water cylinder away from
cash flow positive $100 a week.
You're going to spend that on the house. So there's been some characters in the property industry, some shifty characters who are going alongside the outlines of maybe trying to attract people who want to get rich quick. There's some people who've classed themselves as property coaches and bragged about not paying tax. Which when I first saw on my feed, I thought, I don't know if you're going to be bragging about this, But
it's a good way to get audited pretty quick. And we're in that stage of the market where it's a lot more prevalent, like I mentioned before.
So you keen for a bit of a challenge, a blind ranking challenge?
Go hard.
So I'm going to shoot you some strategies. There's no rush here and feel free to speak to them, but we're going to go from ranking S tier to D tier.
Okay.
S being primo.
S is the primo one.
And then A, B, C, D being a flop.
Sweet.
Hit me. First one, I'm pretty sure we know your answers, but buy and hold, cash flow positive.
Before I give you the answer, the context is what we've just been explaining. Where we are in the current market, it is S tier. It's brilliant.
So this is blind ranking in today's market. Buy and hold new builds of a developer.
Generally speaking, C tier, maybe D tier.
And explain a bit. Like
I look at new builds occasionally with people and you do still see the odd one that stacks up, right? Like a lot of people like to hate on townhouses and in the current market, 9 times out of 10, they're right. But I still see them work. I've seen some really good ones work for Airbnbs. I've seen some good ones work in Central Christchurch, actually. I've seen some duplexes or home and incomes work as new builds. They maybe not perfect buys, but they sometimes really suit a particular type of person. So there are buyers that they actually work for. But generally speaking, right now, there's so many more better opportunities. So they're C to D tier.
So it's not the fact that it's a poor investment. It's more that opportunity cost, right?
Correct. Speaking from investment side here, not owner-occupied personal circumstances.
This is just for investors. Just for investors. I totally agree. I think, you know, the difficult thing to get past is that all the capital has been made by the developer, all the profits have been made by the developer. 9 times out of 10, you're holding an asset that's just going to follow inflation, which you're still going to make money long term. But like you said, there's better opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
We'll go next one, BRRR strategy.
The BRRR strategy. That's S tier. If buy and hold was S tier, buy and hold's now A and BRRR is S.
So explain if anyone doesn't know what that is, but it's...
it's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. BRRR, and like BRRR is very American. In New Zealand, it is doable, and we do see it happen reasonably often, but it's not common. And if you
there's less options around finance.
Exactly. Like we bought a BRRR a week and a half ago down in Dunedin. Brilliant property, purchase 250, revalue 570, 3.99% net yield. About $150 a week cash flow positive on 100% finance. You can recycle. So the reason that it's
3.99%
net yield.
And your net yield's after mortgage costs.
After everything, outgoings, everything, OPEX.
Mortgage.
Everything.
Interest.
100%
finance?
100% finance.
Wow.
This is a BRRR. And in New Zealand, right, a BRRR is basically something where, let's say you put some cash in, $100,000. you can revalue that property at a point where you can recycle $100,000 out. And from a servicing capacity, the income from the property serves 100% of the debt on the property. So it doesn't affect your position materially to be in a position to go and buy the property after that.
Yeah.
So a BRRR is a free house.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's a free house. Yeah. Jack Hammond taught me about this sort of philosophy of a free house.
But to buy a house like that and not have to do anything is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
That does happen, but it's not.
I've bought one.
Yeah, it's not common.
It's very tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally these properties they need a lot of time and effort and money spent, or they've got something wrong. Defective titles, they never reno, they never got a building consent, just things like that. They need something to be sorted out. There's a process, and there's usually a bit of work in that process to get it to that point of being a BRRR.
Yeah. And essentially, it'll become a free house after you get your money back, after fixing it up a bit, right?
Yeah, that could be 6 months.
Totally understand. I mean, this is a strategy I think anyone with a bit of capital and a bit of income, a decent income, should be striving for something like this, because it's the quickest way to build a solid portfolio, and it's relatively safe,
Yeah.
Good cash flow coverage.
Yep.
So we're definitely ranking this S tier, right?
We're ranking that S tier in the current climate. Amazing. Yeah. Or actually in any climate, that is amazing.
Yeah.
If you can pull it off. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's go with property flipping.
Property flipping in the current market. Oh, it's it's actually getting a bit better in the last 6-12 months. So I'd probably put it as a B. Depending on where you are in the country, like a lot of action down in Southland and North Canterbury, and the Lakes District is a market of its own. But we're sort of at a point now where I believe the slump has more or less come to an end. So it's actually a lot clearer to see what your numbers will be.
Yeah.
There's good buying opportunities, but obviously on the back end, you've got to make sure that there's buyers for your particular project. So if you're experienced, flipping is back in. If you know what you're doing and you can find the opportunities.
For sure.
Then, yeah.
No, B, I think that's pretty fair.
And I know some flippers who are doing incredibly well, but they're experienced, they've got a niche, they know what they're doing, they've generally got a bit of capital.
Really good finance setup.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. For fresh flippers right now, maybe a little bit hairy, but yeah.
The ones I see doing really well, they've got their own construction team. So they're building at cost.
Yep.
Yep. And they're getting the same people who quote the work to do it.
Yep.
So just eliminating a lot of risk, right?
Well, they've already got the experience. They've got the relationships. They've been there, done that. They generally know what they're doing if they're at that point.
Tough for mum and dad investors to get to that position.
Absolutely.
Right? Build to rent.
So
you did this, obviously, when the indestructibility costs were...
Yeah, it was brilliant.
But in the current market?
In the early boom stages, build to rent. And it was extra good because of the rule changes around loss of interest deductibility. And ANZ were doing their blueprint to build back then. Are they still doing that?
Yes, they are. It's a very different discount, but they're still doing it.
Yeah. They got ours wrong, and I got a letter not long ago saying we're going to get refunded at a lower interest rate for a while. So they mucked up on one of ours. But anyway, build to rent, it can be really good for the very niche people who are in a position to do it for themselves.
Yeah. Lots of capital required.
Yeah, lots of capital. Yeah, finance is a lot trickier now. It was a lot easier back then. That being said, when we did some build to rents, a BNZ pulled our finance halfway through a project.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for no reason. No explanation.
You're happy to name and shame, eh? Yeah.
Well, it's the truth.
Yeah, but that's something that's shocking. So
what happened is we had an approval right, so we bought this house. It was 1,300 squares. We're going to split it 1 into 3, build 2 new builds on the back, keep them as rentals. Got the finance through BNZ, finance for the entire amount, no conditions. And then we started developing the land. We had a land use consent, meaning that we could build the houses while we're doing the subdivision. So we'd lay down the floors, spend about, call it 50 grand each on the build side of it, send the invoices as per the approval, as per everything.
Fixed price contract.
Yep. Fixed price contract for myself to myself. And then the bank just came back and said, we're not going to finance these builds now until you complete the subdivision and we can have the sections as security. And I was like, but that was never the plan or our discussions or on the approval.
Yeah. You still own everything. You've still got a mortgage on everything.
Well, I was like, well, that's a problem because I've now spent $100,000 that I need.
Yeah.
And I went to ANZ and they approved in 2 days. And so we swapped over. I think there was a bit of a catch where we moved some other property to them as well. And then I went back to BNZ and I was like, oh, I'm moving to ANZ. They're going to finance. And oh, why are you going there? I was like, because they're giving me the money to build the houses. I need to do it. And they're like, oh, if you just told us, we would have given you the money. And it's like, what? It's too late now.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had that interesting thing happen with finance. But build to rent, it can work for niche people who are in that position.
Buy and subdivide.
It's probably C tier, generally speaking,
Yeah.
in most of the country. Yeah, especially the North Island and the current market.
Is it just a lot of risk there or
Well,
not enough margin?
Are we buying greenfield with no existing housing on it? Or are we buying a house with a back section? Or
We're buying a house with a back section.
Yeah, well, that can be good for an equity uplift. Depending on where you are in the country, it might be a little tricky to sell that section. So it might work if you're going to put something on the section, like a transportable.
True.
Transportable has been going really well for a lot of people in the regions in the last sort of 18, 24 months.
Yeah. That is actually my next category, is relocatable homes.
Yeah, if you can finance them, probably A tier.
Yeah.
Because we're in this market right now where a lot of people are struggling on the finance, or there's affordability issues. There are a lot of first-home buyers in the current market. So first-home buyers generally get an approval. They're more buying with emotion than the numbers. So they get their approval. It's $600,000. Then they go on to see what can they buy for $600,000. What's their favorite? Right, so you get these guys who do transportables and they go and get a section, put the transportable on, renovate it, and they meet the market at that price.
Yeah.
So transportables are great at the moment, but finance can be a bit tricky.
You need a lot of capital.
Yeah, a lot of capital.
Yeah. The last one is the mansion effect strategy. So this is essentially buying an extremely expensive owner-occupied and sort of leveling that up as you progress through your life. So, for example, let's say you and your missus max out, buy the most hectic house.
Yeah, it's a Z tier.
And then, so we're going past it. But then, on paper, we should be getting to retirement and we can sell that, live in a more humble house.
Like I was mortgaged up, not to the teeth, but I had a massive mortgage, built my house new when I was 25 years old, paid definitely market value for the section because it's the one Jade wanted. Yeah. And I thought it was pretty cool too. Built the house. It's not a good investment by any means, but it's been a really good place to live and a really good place to have kids. So yeah, personal circumstances. If you're young and you want to build your wealth through property, it's Z.
Yeah.
But if you're married and you're making a healthy income and you got 1 or 2 kids, it could be a B tier.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a really good take on it.
And you can build it into your whole strategy. If you are going to have this mansion house or a really nice house, whatever it is, and that's going to stop you reaching your goals, then maybe you're not at a point where you can have that house.
Yeah.
If you can go and buy, like where I am, let's say $1 million house, if we're in half of Auckland, $1.6 million house, for example. If you can buy that $1.6 million house, but it doesn't stop you buying the next 2 or 3 rentals or doing your next short-term deal, that's cool. If you're not going to be underwater, that could be fine.
The risk is if you stop working.
Yeah.
Then the pan goes to custard.
Heading into COVID, I was like, that's so dumb owning my own house. I need to sell this.
Yeah.
And we actually put it on the market for like 2 or 3 months.
Oh, no way.
And this was just as the market started to turn. But then I'd come home and I'd sit on the deck and I'd look out over the town and I'm like, this is really nice. Do I really want to sell this?
Dude,
like, I don't have to.
Don't sell it. Well, this is another thing that I actually was going to segue into after our blind rank, but thank you so much for the blind ranking. Key takeaways: BRRRR strategy, relocatables, buy and hold cash flow. That's our top 3.
Yep, in the current market.
Yep. Do you look at net yield, gross yield, or?
You look at gross yield up front, but gross yield is only an indication. It doesn't really tell you the story.
Yeah.
So gross yield is basically, once you've looked at 50 or 60 properties and you know how to calculate the gross yield, you can do it in your head really fast. So gross yield can vary a lot. Like I bought a 12.6% gross yield about 1.5 years ago. It's only just cash flow positive. But it's 12.6%, and most people would be like, that's insane. But
what's killing you? Is it
high rates, and it's 3 units on one title.
Oh, yeah.
And insurance is reasonably big, but the rates really kill it.
Yeah.
It's in an area where rates are huge. So 12% yield sounds really good, but it's not always telling you the full story. Whereas like we'll look at properties in, say, main centres now that are 8% yield, and they're actually, $50 a week cash flow positive on 100% finance and at 8%.
Would you even look at a deal if it was running a negative, or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like if you buy something today that's cash flow negative $100 a week, but there's some value add to manufacture your cash flow or equity.
A high growth area or something.
Generally speaking, we want them to be cash flow positive. It's not always easy. And even net yield isn't always
the full story.
Yeah, exactly. You could have something that's 1% net yield that doesn't quite stack up still, doesn't cover all its own debt in the eyes of lenders.
What do you think most clients' view is of what they're trying to get out of property investment?
Once you talk to so many people about what they actually want, you realize that pretty much everybody wants pretty much the same thing. But what they actually want is certainty. It's one of those things that people, they don't take action. They won't do anything unless they have certainty. So they're looking for somebody else to soundboard or to be like, I would buy this myself.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, if you would buy it, then I should buy it.
That's a really important role to play because there's so much uncertainty. Like even if the numbers stack up, when you're making a financial commitment as big as buying a house, it's nerve-wracking, right?
Stressful.
So it's a really important job that you guys do to be on people's side and make sure they're looked after. So I'd say anyone who's looking for a bit more knowledge, reach out to Michael and his team. He's giving away a lot of good information for free.
Yep.
But if you want a bit more hands-on coaching, I think that's something that people can get from you. Mike, thanks so much, mate. You're a friend of Blueprint.
Awesome, mate.
Really appreciate
Thank
you
very
coming
much.
on. Cheers.